The summer heat clung to me as I parked my truck in the driveway, the fading orange glow of sunset casting long shadows across the quiet suburban street. From the outside, my house looked just as perfect as any of the others. Neatly trimmed hedges, a freshly painted door, the kind of place that promised stability and security. A lie wrapped in warm, welcoming colors. I stepped inside, my boots heavy against the hardwood floor. The scent of lavender candles drifted through the air, mixing with something richer, more indulgent. Expensive cologne. My pulse slowed, then sped up again. That wasn't mine. A bead of sweat traced its way down the back of my neck. I listened, music played softly from the stereo, something slow and sultry, a deliberate choice. A game. Sherry. For months, I'd felt it. The distance. The secrecy. The way she held her phone a little too close, smiled a little too often at messages she refused to share. I followed the scent upstairs, my steps careful, controlled. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, flickering candlelight stretching across the hallway. I pushed it open. And there she was. Sherry lay on the bed, her satin robe barely clinging to her shoulders, her golden hair spilling over the pillows. And beside her, sprawled across my sheets, was Todd. His hand rested possessively on her thigh, his lips still ghosting over her collarbone. At the sound of the door creaking open, he lifted his head, eyes hazy with lust. Sherry turned slower, as if savoring the moment. And then she smiled. She fucking smiled. "Hey, baby," she purred, stretching like a cat caught in the act but utterly unashamed. "You're home early." Todd didn't move. He just sat there, half-dressed, watching. Testing me. Sherry ran a hand through her tousled hair, tilting her head. "Are you going to say something?" I stared at her. At them. At the broken illusion of my marriage spread out in tangled sheets and lingering sweat. And then I laughed. A low, humorless chuckle that made her brow crease in confusion. "Funny," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I was going to ask you the same thing." A silence settled over the room, thick and suffocating. The only sound was the steady tick of the wall clock, marking the moments between my past and the inevitable future that had just been set in motion. Todd finally moved, sitting up straighter, the smirk on his face barely restrained. He had that look, the kind of smugness that came from a man who thought he had already won. Sherry, on the other hand, seemed to be waiting. She studied me like I was a wild animal caught in a trap, gauging my reaction, measuring whether I'd break or just accept it. I took a step forward. Todd's muscles tensed. "Good." Sherry exhaled, feigning annoyance. "Oh, come on, Jacob. Don't be dramatic." Dramatic. I stared at my wife, the woman I built a life with, the woman I had trusted, and for the first time, I saw her for what she really was. A liar. A traitor. A goddamn stranger. I ignored her, my attention locked on Todd. He was younger than me, fitter, the type of guy who probably spent hours at the gym admiring himself in the mirror. I smiled. Not because I found anything amusing, but because I finally understood. I had spent months, years, wondering why Sherry had been pulling away. I had blamed myself, thinking maybe I had lost my edge, maybe I had gotten too predictable. But it had nothing to do with me. She was just a selfish bitch who thought she could have everything, security, a home, a husband, and still chase whatever thrill she wanted when the mood struck her. And Todd? Todd was just a disposable plaything. "What's funny?" Todd asked, his smirk slipping slightly. I let my smile widen. "You." His jaw flexed, and I could tell my lack of reaction was getting to him. He wanted me to be mad, to lose it, to throw a punch so he could justify whatever bullshit he had already told himself about this situation. But I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction. Sherry shifted on the bed, pulling the sheet up over herself, but it was for show. She wasn't ashamed. Not really. I tilted my head. "So, how long?" She rolled her eyes. "Does it matter?" I laughed again, shaking my head. "Jesus, Sherry." She sighed, like I was inconveniencing her. "Look, Jacob, we were going to talk to you about this." I raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah? Todd finally spoke up. Yeah, man. Look, I know this is hard to hear, but the truth is, your marriage hasn't been working for a while now. I turned to him slowly. I don't remember asking your opinion, Todd. That wiped the smirk off his face. Sherry sat up, brushing her hair back like she was in a goddamn shampoo commercial. Jacob, be honest, when was the last time we were actually happy? I clenched my jaw. Because the truth was, I had been happy. I had been happy in the mornings when she would kiss me goodbye before work. I had been happy when we planned vacations together, talked about renovations for the house, laughed over inside jokes we had carried for years. But now I realized, she had probably been faking all of it. You don't get to rewrite history just because you feel guilty, I said evenly. She sighed again. I don't feel guilty, Jacob. That's the point. Todd stood up then, grabbing his shirt from the floor and pulling it on. Look, man, he said, adjusting his sleeves. I think we should all just cool down and... I moved faster than either of them expected. 1 second, Todd was talking. The next, I had him by the throat, shoving him against the dresser so hard that the lamp tipped over and crashed to the floor. Sherry gasped. Jacob! Todd choked, his hands scrambling at mine. His eyes went wide. He wasn't smirking anymore. Do you think this is a joke? I asked quietly, my voice eerily calm. You come into my house, fuck my wife, and now you want to play peacemaker? His lips parted, trying to speak, but I squeezed just enough to cut him off. Jacob, stop! Sherry shrieked, grabbing my arm, her nails digging into my skin. I shoved Todd away from me, letting him stumble back, coughing as he rubbed his throat. He looked at me now with something new in his eyes. Fear. Good. I turned to Sherry. You know what? You deserve each other. And with that I walked out of the room, the sound of my heartbeat thundering in my ears. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I didn't stop moving until I reached the kitchen. My hand shook as I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles going white. I needed something, anything, to ground myself before I lost control. The whiskey bottle on the counter called to me. I grabbed it, twisted off the cap, and took a long, burning gulp. It did nothing to quiet the rage inside me. Upstairs, I could hear muffled voices, Sherry and Todd talking. Whispering. Plotting. Like I was the problem here. I wanted to smash something. I wanted to hurt something. Instead, I forced myself to breathe. I'd given Todd a taste of what I was capable of, but this wasn't about him anymore. This was about her. Sherry thought she had me figured out. She thought I'd storm out, punch a wall, maybe drink myself stupid. She thought I'd break. She thought wrong. I pulled my phone from my pocket, scrolled down to a number I never thought I'd have to use, and pressed call. Jacob? Came the deep voice on the other end. I need a favor, I said. There was a pause. Then, name it. I glanced at the staircase, hearing movement. I need you to find out everything you can on a guy named Todd Williams. Where he works, who he fucks around with, what kind of dirt he's got hiding under his nails. The voice chuckled. Messy divorce? Something like that. I'll have something for you by tomorrow. I hung up without another word. The anger didn't fade, but it sharpened. Hardened. This wasn't about getting even. This was about ruining them. A few minutes later, Sherry walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just been upstairs with him. She wore a silk robe, lazily tied at the waist, the same one I had bought her last Christmas. The same one she had worn for me. Disgust curled in my stomach. She poured herself a glass of wine, completely unfazed. So, she said, leaning against the counter, how do you want to handle this? I laughed bitterly. Handle this? She took a sip, watching me carefully. You're obviously upset. No shit. She rolled her eyes, like I was overreacting. You don't have to be dramatic about it, Jacob, she said, swirling the wine in her glass. You had to know this was coming. I stared at her, barely able to believe what I was hearing. You think I knew about this? Sherry sighed, rubbing her temples like I was exhausting her. Come on, Jacob. You haven't touched me in months. I gritted my teeth. Because you were already gone. She smirked. Maybe. My fingers twitched. I wanted to grab that glass and hurl it against the wall. But no. That's what she expected me to do. Instead, I smiled. You really think you're going to end up with him? Sherry blinked, thrown off by my sudden calmness. What? I took a slow step toward her. Todd. You think he's your future? You think he's gonna stick around once he realizes he has you? She stiffened, her nails tapping against the glass. That's the thing about guys like him, I continued. They only want what they shouldn't have. The moment it's theirs, the game is over. The thrill is gone. I tilted my head. How long do you think he'll last? A month? Maybe 2? Her lips parted like she wanted to fire back, but I saw it, that hesitation. That tiny flicker of doubt. Gotcha, bitch. I smirked and stepped back, grabbing my keys off the counter. Where are you going? She demanded. I turned, giving her a slow, measured look. To celebrate. She frowned. Celebrate what? I grinned. The fact that I don't have to waste another goddamn second pretending to love you. And with that, I walked out the door. But this was far from over. I didn't go far. I sat in my truck, gripping the steering wheel, breathing through the rage curling in my gut. The house stood behind me like a tomb, filled with ghosts of a marriage that had died long before I caught her with him. Sherry thought she had won. She thought she could walk all over me, spit in my face, and I'd just accept it. But I wasn't done yet. I scrolled through my phone, my mind working 3 steps ahead. I had always played fair in life, always given people the benefit of the doubt. That ended tonight. I pressed call. Yeah? The voice on the other end was sharp, impatient. It's Jacob. Silence. Then, you sure you want to do this? I glanced back at the house. I'm sure. A low chuckle. Good. Because I've got a lot on Todd Williams. I exhaled through my nose, gripping the phone tighter. Tell me everything. He's been fucking around on his fiancée, the voice said casually. For years. I blinked. Wait, what? Oh yeah? The guy's a serial cheater. Works in finance, but he's been caught dipping into company funds before. Nothing big enough to get him fired, but definitely enough to get him watched. His fiancée, Vanessa, comes from money. He's been leeching off her while keeping side pieces on rotation. A pause. Your wife's just another one on the list. I let that sink in. Sherry was just another one. She thought she was special. That Todd was her fresh start. That he chose her. But she was just another dumb, disposable fuck to a guy who collected women like trophies. I grinned. Oh, this is gonna be fun. The voice chuckled again. Want me to send you the proof? Yeah. And send me Vanessa's number too. Shit, the voice muttered, amused. You really are going nuclear. I glanced back at the house. The lights were still on. They were still in there. Probably laughing, thinking I had slinked off like a broken man. They had no idea what was coming. Damn right I am. The text came through a few minutes later, screenshots, timestamps, even a goddamn video of Todd with another woman. Another one after that. And another one after that. I scrolled through the messages, my smirk growing with every dirty little secret laid out in front of me. And then I dialed Vanessa's number. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Hello? Vanessa, I said smoothly. I think we need to talk. She hesitated. Who is this? I leaned back in my seat, enjoying this more than I thought I would. My name is Jacob. And I think we have something very important in common. Silence. Then, carefully. And what's that? I chuckled. Todd Williams. A sharp inhale. What about him? I glanced at the screenshots again. Oh, sweetheart. You're gonna want to sit down for this. Vanessa didn't speak at first. I could hear her breathing, sharp and uneven, like she was trying to process what I had just said. "What do you mean?" she finally asked, her voice tight. I smiled. "I mean your fiancé has been busy. And not just with my wife." Silence. I let it hang there, let the weight of my words settle into her bones before I continued. "I just sent you something. Take a look." A beat later, my phone buzzed with a new message. "What the fuck?" I chuckled. "Told you." Vanessa sucked in a breath. When she spoke again, her voice was different, colder, controlled. "How long? Does it matter?" Another pause. Then, softer. "No." I leaned back in my seat, watching the glow of my house from the driveway. Todd was still in there. Still with her. "I don't know about you, Vanessa, but I don't like getting played." Her laugh was humorless. "No, Jacob. I don't either." "Good. Then let's ruin him," I said, breaking the illusion. I walked back into the house like I owned the place. Sherry was in the kitchen, sipping another glass of wine. She barely glanced at me. "Oh. You're back." I grinned. "Miss me?" She scoffed. "Hardly." I stepped closer, close enough to watch the slight twitch in her jaw when she finally looked at me. She was waiting for me to snap. To beg. To get angry. She still thought she had control. I slid my phone onto the counter in front of her. "You should read this." Her brows furrowed as she looked down. Then she paled. Because on the screen was a message from Vanessa. "It's done. He's in for a surprise when he gets home." I made sure of it. Sherry's throat bobbed as she swallowed. What is this?" I leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. "Todd's going home to nothing." She shook her head, eyes darting over the words again. "I don't understand." I smiled. "Vanessa kicked him out. Cancelled their engagement. Froze their joint accounts." I let that sink in before I added. "And she's pressing charges for the money he stole." Sherry's lips parted slightly. "That's not, he wouldn't." "Oh, but he did," I murmured, enjoying the panic creeping into her expression. "And now he's broke." She pushed the phone away, as if she could physically reject what she was reading. "Why would you?" "Because you thought you were winning, Sherry." I cut her off. "You thought you had this all figured out. That you could cheat, lie, and walk away without consequences." I let my smile drop, let her see the real me. "But you fucked up." Her hands trembled slightly as she set down her wine glass. "Jacob, what are you going to do?" I tilted my head. "Oh, sweetheart. I'm just getting started." Sherry's lips parted, her eyes flicking between me and the phone like she was trying to wake herself from a nightmare. "Jacob," she breathed, voice unsteady. "You don't have to do this." I smirked. "Do what?" She swallowed. "Destroy everything." I leaned in slightly, watching the way she stiffened as I closed the space between us. "You mean like you did?" Her face hardened, a flicker of defiance beneath the fear. "It wasn't like that." I laughed, low and humorless. "Oh, it wasn't?" I picked up my phone and scrolled until I found the screenshots I needed. Then I turned the screen toward her. "Let me remind you." Her eyes darted over the images. Her and Todd at the hotel, their messages, the way she had gushed over how exciting it was to sneak around behind my back. I had seen these messages a dozen times now, but reading them again still made my stomach churn. "He's so different from Jacob. He actually knows how to make me feel wanted. I wish we had more time, baby. Being with you is the best part of my day. Soon. He'll get used to the idea. He has to." I watched the blood drain from her face. "You really thought I'd just accept it, huh?" Sherry set the wine glass down with a trembling hand. "Jacob." "No." I cut her off. "See, that's the problem. You don't get to talk your way out of this. Not anymore." She stepped back, her robe slipping slightly off her shoulder, a remnant of the woman who had been sprawled across our bed with him just an hour ago. I didn't even feel anger at the sight anymore, just cold, calculated satisfaction at what was coming next. Sherry licked her lips, voice softer now. I made a mistake. I chuckled. No, sweetheart. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is backing into a pole in a parking lot. This? I gestured to the evidence on my phone. This is a choice. Over and over again you chose this. Her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. You don't have to ruin us. I met her gaze, holding it. Oh, but I do. I grabbed my laptop from the counter and opened the email draft I had prepared earlier. With a few quick keystrokes, I attached every single piece of proof, the photos, the messages, even a few extra details Vanessa had dug up about Todd's previous indiscretions. Then I typed in the recipients. Sherry's parents. Her closest friends. Our neighbors. Her employer. She saw what I was doing before I even hit send. Jacob! She gasped, lunging for the laptop. I stepped back easily, watching her scramble in desperation. Too late. With one final click, the email was gone. Her hands flew to her mouth. No! I took a deep breath, the weight that had been crushing me for months finally lifting. Yes. The panic sets in. She was shaking now, her breath coming in short, shallow gasps. You don't understand what you've done. Oh, I do, I said coolly. And so will everyone else. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Then again. And again. The fallout was already beginning. She reached for it, but I grabbed it first. I checked the screen. Her mother. With a smirk, I answered. Hi, Diane. Sherry's eyes went wide. She tried to grab the phone, but I sidestepped her, keeping my voice even. Yeah, she's right here. Do you want to ask her what she's been doing behind my back? Her mother's voice crackled through the speaker, sharp and furious. Jacob, what the hell is going on? Sherry whimpered. Actually whimpered. I handed her the phone with a shrug. Guess you'll have to explain. She snatched it with shaking fingers, voice barely above a whisper. Mom! Diane ripped into her. I couldn't hear every word, but I didn't need to. The way Sherry's shoulders curled in, the way her lips trembled, the way she whispered. I can explain. Over and over again told me everything. She couldn't. I grabbed my keys and walked toward the door. By the way, I tossed over my shoulder. You might want to pack a bag. She looked up at me, eyes glassy with desperation. What? I smiled. You're not staying here anymore. She blinked. You can't. I can, I said, unlocking the front door. I already spoke to my lawyer. Since the house is in my name, and we don't have kids, I can have you out tonight. So I'd start packing if I were you. She shook her head, disbelief painted all over her face. You wouldn't. I turned to her, my grin widening. Oh, sweetheart. Watch me. Then I stepped outside, inhaling the crisp night air. Inside, Sherry sobbed. The sound was beautiful. Sherry didn't move at first. She just stood there, clutching her phone like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to reality. Her mother's voice still rang through the speaker, furious, demanding explanations that she didn't have. I leaned against the doorframe, watching the moment sink in. The realization. The consequences. The pure, undeniable fact that she had lost. She finally looked up at me, her face pale. Jacob, please. I tilted my head. Please what? Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. Don't do this. We can talk. We can. I laughed. Actually laughed. She flinched. There's nothing to talk about, Sherry. I stepped forward, lowering my voice to something dark and smooth. You set this fire. I'm just making sure you burn in it. She let out a shaky breath, glancing toward the stairs. Can I at least pack my things? I grinned. No rush. I gave you till morning. She hesitated, eyes darting toward the living room, like she thought there was still an escape route. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem, I said simply. Her lips trembled. You can't just throw me out like this. I crossed my arms. Oh, I can, sweetheart. And I am. The front door swung open. Todd. His expression flickered between confusion and irritation. What the hell is going on? I grinned. Oh, perfect timing. Sherry whipped around to face him. Jacob sent everything to my parents. To everyone. They know. Todd's jaw tightened. He stepped inside, his voice low. Are you kidding me? I chuckled, closing the distance between us. You thought you were untouchable, huh? His nostrils flared. You're a fucking child, Jacob. Maybe. I shrugged. But I'm not the one who just lost everything. His face twisted into a sneer. You're acting like you won. I leaned in. Oh, Todd. My voice was barely a whisper now. I did. His fists clenched. I saw the moment he debated throwing a punch. I wanted him to. I wanted an excuse. Sherry must have sensed it too because she grabbed his arm. Let's just go. Todd jerked away. Go where? He turned to me, seething. You think you ruined my life? You think Vanessa meant anything to me? I smirked. She meant enough for you to live off her money. His expression darkened. Sherry's breath hitched. Wait, what? Todd didn't answer. I took a step closer, enjoying the way his confidence faltered. Vanessa cut you off. Froze your accounts. Even reported you for fraud. So tell me, Todd, how much cash do you have on you right now? His lips pressed into a thin line. Sherry turned to him, her voice cracking. You said you had money? He rubbed his jaw, his composure cracking. I do. I laughed. You did. Sherry took a step back. Todd, tell me that's not true. His nostrils flared. I don't need her money, okay? I grinned. No, but you needed hers. I gestured at Sherry. She blinked, the weight of my words settling in. Her gaze darted back to Todd. Is that why? Todd groaned, running a hand down his face. Jesus, Sherry. You really think I'd leave her for you if I didn't have a plan? Her lips parted slightly, her entire body going rigid. You used me? Todd scoffed. Don't act like you're innocent. You wanted something exciting. Something new. He gestured toward me. You had safe and predictable, and you threw it away. Her breathing turned shallow. But you said... I said what I needed to say. He turned toward the door. I'm not dealing with this shit. Sherry reached for him. Wait. He shoved her hand off and stormed outside. She stood there, stunned, watching the man she had destroyed our marriage for disappear into the night. The silence stretched. Then, finally, she turned back to me. Tears pooled in her eyes. Jacob, I raised a hand. Don't. Her breath hitched. I don't have anywhere to go. I nodded toward the door. Then you'd better start looking. Her eyes pleaded. Can't we? I stepped forward, leaning down until I was inches from her face. You made your choice, Sherry. My voice was low. Cold. Now live with it. A tear spilled down her cheek. You really hate me that much? I held her gaze, letting the moment stretch until my answer was absolute. I nothing you. She sucked in a breath, as if the words had physically struck her. And then, finally, she nodded. Without another word, she turned, grabbed her purse, and walked out. I shut the door behind her. And just like that, the house finally felt clean again. The silence was the first thing I noticed. For months, this house had been filled with the sound of Sherry's lies, her late-night whispers, the bullshit excuses she fed me while she spread her legs for Todd. But now, nothing. Just peace. I locked the front door behind her, the finality of the moment sinking in. She was gone. For good. I stood there for a second, letting it wash over me. Then I took a deep breath, grabbed my whiskey bottle, and poured myself a drink. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The loose ends. I walked into my office, sat down at my desk, and pulled up my laptop. There were still a few pieces left to move in this game, and I had every intention of seeing it through. First, I opened my email. Vanessa had already sent me an update. Vanessa. Todd came home to an empty condo. I had the locks changed. Froze everything. He's fucked. Thank you for showing me the truth. I smirked, replying quickly. Me. He deserves worse, but this will do for now. Let me know if you ever need anything. Then I opened a different email, the one from my lawyer. Subject, divorce proceedings, Jacob and Sherry Monroe. I clicked it open, scanning the document. Everything was airtight. Sherry wasn't getting a damn thing. The house, the accounts, the car, it was all mine. She hadn't just lost me. She'd lost everything. And she had no one to blame but herself. I signed my name at the bottom, attached it to my reply, and hit send. Cleaning up the mess. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. It was over. I had spent months drowning in her betrayal, suffocating under the weight of my own blind trust. But now I could finally breathe. My phone buzzed again. Not Vanessa this time. Unknown number. You did good, man. Todd had it coming. I smirked. It was the private investigator I had hired weeks ago to dig into Todd's life. The same guy who had uncovered the dirt that sent Vanessa running. Me. Appreciate it. Unknown number. Need anything else? I paused. Thought about it. No. I had what I wanted. I had my revenge. Me. Nah. I'm good. One last goodbye. I stood up, walked to the living room, and grabbed the last of Sherry's shit, a couple of sweaters she had left on the couch, some perfume on the bathroom counter, a stupid little note she had written me months ago that said, "Always yours." I tossed it all into a garbage bag, walked outside, and threw it straight into the dumpster. Gone. For good. Then I pulled out my phone, scrolled down to her contact, and hit delete. No messages. No calls. No more chances. I walked back inside, locked the door, and poured myself another drink. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. The house was mine again. Not just in name, not just in legal documents, mine. No lingering scent of Sherry's overpriced perfume. No sounds of her fake laughter over the phone as she texted Todd. No more walking into rooms and wondering if she had been there with him while I was at work. Just silence. And I fucking loved it. I sat on the couch, whiskey glass in hand, staring at nothing in particular. The TV was on, but I wasn't watching. My mind was still processing what had just happened, how fast everything had fallen apart for her, how quickly Todd had shown his true colors. How fucking satisfying it had been to watch it all burn. I took a slow sip and checked my phone. No messages. Good. Nothing left to do now but move forward. Except, something still didn't feel finished. I unlocked my phone and scrolled down to Vanessa's number. We hadn't spoken much since Todd's world collapsed, but there was one last thing I needed from her. Me. Did Todd reach out to you? A few minutes passed before she replied. Vanessa. Of course. He begged. Tried to explain. I blocked him. I smirked. Me. Good. But I need to know, where's he staying? Vanessa hesitated this time. Vanessa. Why? I thought about lying, but there was no point. Me. Because I want to make sure he doesn't land on his feet. She read the message but didn't reply right away. A few moments passed before 3 little dots popped up. Vanessa. He's staying with a friend. Mark Jansen. I frowned. I knew that name. Mark was one of Todd's coworkers. A big finance guy, just like Todd. The type who loved to party, loved money, loved power. He had always rubbed me the wrong way. And I suddenly remembered something very important about Mark. His company was ruthless about its image. Todd worked for him. And I had proof that Todd had been skimming from company accounts. My smirk widened out. I did a quick search for Mark's office number. It was late, but I knew these types. They were always working. I dialed. A gruff voice answered. Jansen. Mark, I said smoothly. This is Jacob Monroe. We met at that Christmas party last year. Silence. Then, right. What can I do for you? I leaned back on the couch, keeping my voice casual. I wanted to give you a heads up about Todd. Mark chuckled. Oh yeah? What's that idiot done now? I smiled. Let's just say, he's got some financial indiscretions you might want to take a look at. Silence. Then, you have proof? I tapped my phone. Sitting in my inbox. Happy to forward it. Mark exhaled. Jesus Christ. You serious? Dead serious. A pause. Then, send it. I did. 5 minutes later, Mark called back. His voice was tight, pissed. Holy fuck, he growled. This is bad. Yeah, I agreed. And now he's crashing at your place. A beat of silence. Then, not for fucking long. I grinned. Glad we had this talk. I ended the call. Todd had nowhere left to run. Not 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. A number I didn't recognize. I already knew who it was. I let it ring. Let him stew in it. Then, finally, I answered. Hello? Todd's voice was low, strained. You fucking ruined me. I smiled. No, Todd. You ruined yourself. Silence. I could almost hear him grinding his teeth. You don't know when to stop, do you? He spat. Oh, I do, I said. And I just did. Todd exhaled shakily, like he was trying to hold himself together. You happy now? I thought about it. About everything. Sherry? Gone. The divorce? Filed. Todd? Fucking homeless. I leaned back, enjoying the moment. Yeah, Todd. I'm fucking ecstatic. Silence. Then, finally, he hung up. I sat there for a moment, phone still in hand, listening to the nothingness. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I sat there, phone still in hand, letting the silence settle. It was over. Todd had nothing. Sherry had nothing. And me? I had everything I needed. For months, I had drowned in betrayal. I had suffocated under the weight of Sherry's lies, Todd's smugness, the sheer fucking audacity of what they thought they could do to me. But I wasn't drowning anymore. I had pulled myself out of the wreckage. I had torched everything that needed to burn. And now? Now, I could finally breathe. I poured myself another drink, swirling the whiskey in my glass, savoring the slow burn as I took a sip. The house was quiet, peaceful in a way it hadn't been in years. And then, a knock at the door. I sighed, setting the glass down. I already knew who it was. I took my time getting up, stretching my arms as I walked toward the entrance. When I opened the door, I was met with the pathetic sight of Sherry standing there in the porch light, eyes red, hair a mess. She looked like shit. Good. She shifted on her feet, swallowing hard. Jacob. I leaned against the doorframe, raising an eyebrow. You lost? Her breath hitched. I don't have anywhere to go. I smirked. Sounds like a you problem. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Please. I crossed my arms. What do you want, Sherry? She looked down, her lip trembling. I don't know. I scoffed. Yeah, you do. You thought Todd was your ticket to something better, and when that blew up in your face, you came crawling back. You always need someone to clean up your mess, don't you? She flinched. It's not like that. I tilted my head. No? She swallowed hard. I was wrong, Jacob. About everything. I thought I wanted. I don't even know anymore. But I do know that I held up a hand. Stop. Her mouth snapped shut. I sighed, rubbing a hand over my jaw. Sherry, let me ask you something. She nodded quickly, desperate. Anything. I met her gaze. Would you be here right now if Todd still had money? The way her face drained of color told me everything I needed to know. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I smirked. Yeah. That's what I thought. She started crying then. Full on sobbing. And I just stood there, watching. I didn't comfort her. I didn't tell her it was okay. I didn't give her what she wanted. I just let her break. Because this was justice. When she finally pulled herself together, she wiped her face with shaking hands. I don't know where to go. I gestured to the street. Motel's down the road. Hope you've got cash. Her lips parted, stunned. Jacob, please. I tilted my head. You begged me for months to understand, to be okay with what you were doing. Now it's your turn. I smiled. You'll be fine. She stared at me, realizing. I wasn't taking her back. I wasn't forgiving her. She had ruined us, and now she had to live with it. A moment passed. Then, slowly, she nodded. I guess I deserve this. I gave her a cold smile. You deserve worse. She swallowed thickly, turned, and walked away. I watched her go. And with every step she took, I felt lighter. When she finally disappeared down the street, I closed the door. Locked it. And just like that, she was gone. For good. The next morning, I woke up feeling better than I had in years. I had my life back. I brewed a fresh pot of coffee, stepped onto the porch, and let the morning air wash over me. No weight on my chest. No doubt. No regret. My phone buzzed. A message from Vanessa. Vanessa. I saw Todd today. He looks like shit. I chuckled, taking a sip of coffee. Me. Good. Vanessa. You ever gonna tell me how you knew all that stuff about him? I smirked. Me. Trade secret. She sent a laughing emoji. Then. Vanessa. Drinks tonight? I raised an eyebrow. Thought about it. Then typed back. Me. Absolutely. The end. No redemption. No second chances. No coming back. Just revenge, karma, and a brand new life.